Last night's episode of the politically charged late-night talk show Red Line with Morgan Fielding turned into an unfiltered, volatile showdown that's now dominating social media headlines. The show, known for its liberal-leaning host and polarizing commentary, promised a thought-provoking sit-down with Elon Musk. But what viewers got was something else entirely: a train wreck of accusations, philosophical combat, and the kind of television that people either label brave or unhinged. The episode started predictably, with Morgan Fielding, the ever-composed, sharp-tongued host, introducing Musk with a half-smirk and the faintest scent of sarcasm. "Tonight's guest," Fielding began, "is a man who wants to colonize Mars but can't seem to find peace on Earth, especially not with his own family." The audience gave a hesitant laugh, unsure if this was part of an edgy bit or the start of something more personal. Elon Musk walked out to a mix of polite claps and murmurs. The interview began civil enough, touching on Tesla's new energy initiatives and X's ongoing battle with government regulations. Musk responded calmly, measured, if slightly amused. But 20 minutes in, Fielding abruptly shifted gears, cutting Musk off mid-sentence with a rehearsed pivot. "Before we move on," Fielding said, leaning forward, "I need to address something more important than electric cars or Mars fantasies. And frankly, I don't care if you squirm. There's an elephant in this room, and its name is your daughter." The audience went dead silent. Musk, caught slightly off guard, narrowed his eyes. Fielding continued, voice rising just enough to stir tension. "Your child, born Xavier, now lives as Jenna. She's renounced your name. She's asked for space, respect, identity. And you've given her what? Cold indifference? Mockery? You, Elon, claim to be a futurist, yet you can't respect the most basic form of progress: the freedom to live as one's authentic self." Musk blinked slowly, leaning back in his chair, saying nothing. "You've tweeted thinly veiled jabs at trans people," Fielding pressed, voice climbing into outright accusation. "You said pronouns suck. You boosted anti-trans talking points. So let's call it what it is. You're not just uninformed, you're transphobic. And maybe," he added, voice now slicing, "just maybe, your outdated traditional ideologies, rooted in a childhood of elitist, hyper-masculine South African rigidity, are the real virus we should be worried about." Gasps from the crowd. Elon. Musk exhaled quietly, then finally spoke. "You don't know me, and you definitely don't know my child." But Fielding wasn't finished. "Oh, I think I know enough. The richest man on the planet, too busy playing God with rockets to pick up the phone and tell his daughter, 'I love you as you are.' You preach about AI, about freedom of thought, but can't accept that your own child has evolved into someone new." For the first time on camera in the episode, Musk's jaw clenched. His stare turned glacial. He sat perfectly still. Then, in a sharp pivot, Musk addressed the audience instead of the host. "I think what's happening right now," he said, voice suddenly louder, firmer, "is the very problem with this cultural decay we're seeing. You're not asking a question. You're staging a performance, a public shaming." But Fielding cut in again, relentless. "This isn't a performance. This is accountability. This is the world asking you to be better, to grow, and stop hiding your bigotry behind science fiction and techno-utopian buzzwords." "You want accountability?" Musk snapped. "Then start with your own hypocrisy. You weaponize empathy only when it gets you applause." Fielding laughed. "Oh, now you're the victim?" The tension hit a fever pitch. Musk didn't blink. "You've turned my personal family grief into a tabloid headline, then packaged it into some sanctimonious monologue about growth. You don't want truth. You want control. You want compliance. That's not empathy. That's ideological narcissism," the crowd murmured. Louder this time, mixed reactions, some clapping, others stunned. Fielding leaned back with a faux casual smirk. Funny hearing a man worth 200 billion complain about being controlled. And then, the moment that would set the internet on fire. You're not interested in my child's well-being, Musk said. You're interested in hijacking her story to feed your moral vanity. You talk about progress, but what you want is enforced speech, not free speech. That's what woke culture has become, an authoritarian virus disguised as compassion. Fielding's smile faltered for the first time. And if you think that makes me transphobic, Musk added, looking straight into the camera, then you've fundamentally misunderstood the difference between disagreement and hate, between love and obedience. And that's a terrifying misunderstanding to normalize. The room went still again. Fielding sat there, mouth tight. The wind knocked out of him, just for a second. He recovered quickly, but the change in his demeanor was undeniable. Well, he said stiffly, adjusting his mic, that's enough for tonight. I think we're done here. Musk tilted his head. No rebuttal? Interview's over, Fielding said, and the screen cut to commercial. But what came next, after the cameras returned, was the real breaking point. The show returned from commercial with the usual transition music, but something was off. The audience, visibly unsettled from the pre-break confrontation, sat tensely in their seats. The usual light-hearted backdrop music seemed mismatched now, hollow, even awkward, like an afterthought in a room where a bomb had just gone off. Morgan Fielding sat stiffly in his chair, his signature smirk gone. Elon Musk remained seated. Across from him, arms crossed, his posture now sharp and defensive, eyes locked forward. There was no scripted reintroduction, no welcome back, no easing the tension, just silence. And then Fielding spoke, his tone clipped, his composure visibly strained. Before we ended that last segment, he began, his voice lower and tighter than before. Mr. Musk accused me of exploiting his family and twisting his personal struggles for ratings. I want to clarify something for our viewers. He didn't look at Musk. He looked into the camera. This isn't about scoring points. This isn't about being woke or pushing an agenda. It's about standing up to people who use their power and platforms to normalize intolerance. Musk finally spoke, slow and deliberate. You're moralizing to an audience you've trained to applaud outrage. That's not bravery. That's programming. Fielding turned to him sharply. So now I'm a programmer of minds. Please, you're the one trying to upload your consciousness into satellites. Don't lecture me about control. Musk cracked. A slight, almost imperceptible smile. But it wasn't friendly. You mock things you don't understand because it's easier than questioning your own ideas. The irony is, your entire platform is built on dissent, but only when it flatters your worldview. You're talking in riddles now, Fielding shot back. You're dodging. I'm speaking in nuance, Musk said, leaning forward. A concept your ideology has sterilized. You're obsessed with moral binaries, good or evil, victim or villain, oppressor or oppressed. There's no room for complexity in your framework. Just purity tests. That visibly stung. Fielding bristled. You act like the culture is some Orwellian nightmare because people are asking you to treat them with dignity, he said. Because people don't want billionaires dictating who they're allowed to be. Musk didn't flinch. No one's asking for dignity anymore. They're demanding ideological conformity. Under threat of cancellation, public shaming, and forced apologies. And it's not just billionaires. It's teachers, scientists, comedians, kids in high school. You've turned freedom of speech into a liability. Fielding raised his hand as if calling for time. You're exaggerating. No one's stopping you from speaking. You just tried, Musk snapped. You literally told me this interview was over the moment I said something that didn't fit your script. And now you're backtracking, pretending you're the victim of some tyrannical billionaire when you've spent this entire segment trying to assassinate my character. The audience was no longer just watching. They were leaning in, half in shock, half enthralled. Phones were out. People were recording. Fielding straightened, now visibly agitated. This isn't about character assassination. This is about standing up for people who've been marginalized. By marginalizing others, Musk retorted. By policing. Language, thought, even emotion. Unless it fits your narrative. You think empathy means submission. That's not compassion. That's coercion. Fielding's face tightened. So what do you suggest we do, Elon? Just let people say whatever they want? Let rich men like you spout conspiracy theories about woke mind viruses while trans kids suffer in silence? You want a free-for-all? Musk paused, long enough to draw attention back into the room, before answering. I want a world where we can have hard conversations without being accused of heresy, where disagreement doesn't mean hatred, where a father struggling to understand his child isn't immediately branded a bigot. I want a world where truth matters more than optics. Silence. For the first time all night, Fielding had no immediate retort. I never hated my child, Musk added, voice softening just slightly. I love her more than anything. But love doesn't mean blind affirmation. It means honesty. It means wrestling with things you don't understand, not surrendering your integrity to avoid being called a monster. The crowd began to clap. Not all of them, but enough to be heard. Fielding raised a hand sharply. No. No clapping. This is not a TED Talk. Musk arched an eyebrow. No. This is your courtroom. And you just lost the jury. Fielding stared at him, cheeks flushed. You know what I think? I think you've rehearsed this. I think you came here expecting to look like the underdog. The martyr. You wanted to be kicked off this show. Musk stood up, slowly. No, he said. I came here thinking maybe we could talk. But you didn't want a conversation. You wanted a public execution. Fielding stood too, voice rising with it. This is my show, and I say when it's over. Musk gave him a long look. Then say it. The tension was unbearable now. Fielding finally snapped, This interview is over. Get him off the stage. Gasps. The audience erupted in scattered boos and cheers as security moved hesitantly toward the stage. Musk didn't wait. He turned, calm, collected, but his eyes burned with something deeper than anger, something personal. He walked off without another word. Fielding sat back down, red-faced, silent, and visibly shaken. The cameras didn't cut. The feed lingered on his expression for a moment too long before the studio faded to black. But by then, the clips had already hit the internet, and the fallout had only just begun. Within minutes of the broadcast cutting to black, clips of the explosive interview flooded social media. Hashtags like Musk vs. Fielding, Woke Mind Virus, and Talk Show Meltdown were trending globally. The confrontation wasn't just viral, it was cultural dynamite. On one side, progressives who hailed Morgan Fielding as a hero for standing up to hate. On the other, libertarians, centrists, and critics of cancel culture who applauded Elon Musk for finally saying aloud what many had whispered in private. But amidst the tribal noise, one thing was clear. Something about the interview had cracked the polished surface of modern media. Less than an hour after walking off stage, Elon Musk broke his silence with a single post on X. Free speech does not mean agreement, and love does not require obedience. I said what I came to say. The post hit over 10 million likes within hours. Meanwhile, Fielding's team scrambled to control the narrative. A press statement was released by Redline's producers at dawn, defending the host's conduct, accusing Musk of deflecting from legitimate questions with performative outrage, and condemning what they called his regressive rhetoric disguised as intellectualism. But the damage was already done, and not in the way Fielding expected. Clips of Musk's now viral line, "You weaponize empathy only when it gets you applause," were circulating with surprising reach. Even some former allies of Fielding admitted privately that the host had gone too far, making the interview feel more like a prosecution than a discussion. By mid-morning, several prominent public figures, including a few openly trans commentators, began posting critiques not of Musk, but of the segment itself. One viral post read, "We can demand trans rights and still recognize that exploiting someone's family trauma on national television is deeply unethical. That wasn't activism. That was theater." Back in the studio, Fielding was rattled, not by the criticism, but by the fact that he had lost control of the narrative. For a man who prided himself on managing public perception, this was foreign territory. He convened an emergency segment the following night, sans guest, to deliver what he described as clarification. But it only made things worse. "I don't regret calling Elon Musk out," Fielding said into the camera, posture rigid, expression grave. But perhaps the timing and the tone could have been different. The internet was merciless. The phrase timing and tone trended as a meme within minutes, mocked as a passive half-apology that satisfied no one. Musk, meanwhile, didn't address the issue further. He gave no follow-ups, no rants, no additional statements. His silence spoke louder than any soundbite. That calculated restraint contrasted starkly with Fielding's visible unraveling, as episode after episode of Redline opened with new attempts at reframing the event, each more defensive than the last. But then came the final twist. A leaked segment from before the interview aired surfaced, raw footage that hadn't made the cut. In it, Fielding could be heard mocking Musk's daughter off camera, joking with his producers, saying, "If we push him on the trans thing, he'll either explode or play victim. Either way, we win." It was damning. Even Fielding's most loyal viewers found the clip difficult to defend. Sponsors began pulling advertising. Op-eds flipped. What had begun as a crusade for justice now looked eerily like a planned ambush, drenched in hypocrisy. 3 days later, Fielding took an unscheduled leave of absence from the show. The network issued a vague statement about realignment and respecting journalistic ethics. Rumors circulated that he wouldn't return. And as for Musk, he moved on, predictably. A week later, he announced a new initiative, a public town hall series focused on open dialogue without ideological gatekeeping. The pilot episode featured voices from across the political spectrum, including trans activists, psychologists, and free speech advocates. It wasn't a PR stunt. It was a statement of intent. In the debut town hall, Musk opened with a message not about his daughter, or about Fielding, or about being misunderstood. Instead, he said this: "We're not going to agree on everything. That's not the goal. The goal is to talk like adults again, without fear, without performance, without shame as currency." The audience gave a standing ovation. And just like that, the cultural moment shifted. Not entirely, not cleanly, but noticeably. The Redline confrontation became less about who was right and more about what the moment revealed: the fragility of performative activism, the dangers of ideological certainty, and the cost of treating every disagreement like a war. In the weeks that followed, talk shows across the spectrum adopted new tones, less combative, more curious. Networks reevaluated how they booked guests. The conversation didn't get quieter, but it got smarter. Musk never spoke publicly about Fielding again, nor did he gloat. In private, when asked why he walked off instead of firing back harder, he reportedly said, "Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all, especially when they expect you to scream." And Fielding? He disappeared from public life, at least for a time. Last anyone heard, he'd left the city, citing the need to reflect. Whether he would return, or what he might become if he did, was unclear. But one thing was certain: The interview that began as just another late-night spectacle had become something else entirely, a cultural inflection point. A moment when the script broke, the mask slipped, and two men collided at the fault line of a divided era. It was messy, it was painful, and it was real. But for once, it was not performative. It was the truth, and it had consequences.